Have you ever heard the saying, animals don't eat humans? Yeah, that's bullshit. Here is 10 of the most terrifying man-eating predators in human history. The number one will shock you. Starting with number 10, Gustave the Crocodile. It was supposed to be a quick trip upriver. Just 3 men and a wooden fishing boat. Their names were Gysinge, Mosi, and Daniel, local fishermen who thought they would catch some fish before the sun went down. Daniel even joked about the man-eating croc, called him an old wives' tale, a ghost story to scare children. But beneath the surface lurks a creature so fearsome that his very name sends shivers down the spines of locals. His name is Gustave, a Nile crocodile of monstrous proportions, a predator with a rumored body count of over 300 people, and a phantom that has eluded capture for decades. 7 meters long and weighing over a ton in kilograms makes him one of the largest Nile crocodiles ever recorded. But then they heard it, a sound like a tree falling, only slower, something massive shifting just beneath them. Jean leaned over the edge, saw nothing, just bubbles, and then something hit them from below. Hard. The boat snapped in two like matchsticks. Jean never resurfaced. Daniel tried to swim, but the current was red. Mosi made it to shore, barefoot, bleeding, screaming that the water had eyes. The locals gathered around Mosi. All they found was half a boat, a piece of Daniel's shirt, and the bodies a couple of days later. While Nile crocodiles typically drag their prey into the water and consume them, Gustave has been repeatedly observed killing humans and leaving their bodies behind. This eerie pattern has led to speculation that he kills for sport rather than sustenance. Some locals claim he toys with his victims before discarding them, further fueling his bloodthirsty reputation. Number 9. The Tsavo Man-Eaters. Deep in the Tsavo region, something ancient stirs. Night after night, screams echo through the workers' camps. 2 male lions, massive and maneless like shadows with fangs, begin dragging men from their tents. Not for territory, not in defense, for pleasure. These lions didn't fear fire, nor did they run from humans. They stalked them, creeping in with ghost-like silence, tearing men from their beds while others watched helplessly. Over the course of 9 months, up to 135 men are believed to have been devoured. Even the most hardened colonial officers trembled. Finally, Lieutenant Colonel John Patterson, an engineer turned hunter, took it upon himself to end the nightmare. He built traps, shot 1 lion after 20 days of stalking, and the other weeks later, but only after being nearly mauled to death. Their skins were so bullet-riddled and scarred that taxidermists had trouble mounting them. Today, you can see them at the Field Museum in Chicago, souvenirs of a time when man was prey. Number 8. Sloth Bear of Mysore. The man had gone to collect firewood like he did every morning, but this time he didn't come back. Hours passed, then someone found what was left of him, his axe snapped in half, and nearby, a trail of blood leading into the scrubby trees. In the forest near Mysore, India, during the early 20th century, villagers lived in quiet dread. It wasn't an Indian scammer screaming, "Don't redeem it," that haunted the trails. It was a sloth bear, twice the size of a man with long claws and a temper that seemed almost human in its hatred. This bear didn't just attack to defend itself, it stalked, it ambushed, and what it left behind was horrifying. One woman survived an encounter. Her face was torn away, leaving only bone where her mouth had been. Others weren't so lucky. The bear seemed to target the head and face, mauling with vicious focus. It would knock victims down, rip at them with its claws, and bite with terrifying force. They called it the man-eater of Mysore, even though it didn't always eat what it killed. Some believed the bear had gone mad after being wounded by a hunter. Others whispered darker things, that it carried a grudge that it remembered. The British colonial authorities eventually sent famed hunter Kenneth Anderson. He tracked the bear through dense scrub, learning its patterns. After days of pursuit, he finally caught it, large, scarred, and snarling. One shot rang out, then silence. The bear was dead, but its legacy of fear remained. In its rampage, it had killed at least 12 people and maimed many more. To this day, locals still speak of it, not just as a beast, but as a nightmare that once walked on 4 legs through the forests of Mysore. Number 7. Wolf of Gysinge. It began with a child, then another. Each time the villages near Gysinge in central Sweden were left reeling. The children had only wandered a few meters from home, just long enough for their parents to turn their backs. But the wolf was faster. When they found the bodies, they were torn and lifeless. Some were missing limbs. Others had been dragged deep into the forest. Between 1820 and 1821, terror gripped the countryside. A single wolf, unusually bold, began hunting humans, specifically children. In less than a year, it attacked 31 people. 12 of them died. What made it worse was that wolves were supposed to fear humans, but this one didn't. It roamed freely near farms and villages, striking in broad daylight. Some witnesses claimed it stared straight at them before attacking, fearless and determined. Speculation grew. Some said it had once been kept in captivity, losing its fear of humans. Others blamed starvation or disease, but none of that mattered to the grieving families. Parents no longer let their children out alone. Hunters set traps, posted watch. The entire region was on edge. It was as if the woods themselves had turned against them. Eventually, the wolf was tracked and killed. When the villagers heard the news, they wept with relief. But even now, more than 2 centuries later, the story of the wolf of Gysinge lingers in Swedish folklore, not just as a tale of a rogue predator, but as a chilling reminder that even the most familiar animals can sometimes become monsters. Number 6. The Champawat Tiger. She struck without warning. A flash of orange in the jungle and then silence. Villagers would follow the trail, broken branches, a single sandal, a splash of blood in the grass. But by then it was always too late. In the hills of Nepal and northern India, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, the Champawat tiger reigned in terror. This Bengal tigress wasn't hunting deer or wild boar. She hunted humans, mostly women and children gathering wood or water. She moved like a ghost between villages. No one knew where she would strike next. Entire communities emptied out, families abandoning their homes to escape her reach. The count rose quickly. By the time the British colonial government took action, the tigress had killed over 400 people, 434 to be exact. It was the deadliest man-eater in recorded history. Hunters tried and failed to stop her. She was clever, fast, always one step ahead. Eventually, legendary hunter Jim Corbett was called in. He studied her attacks, tracked her movement, and finally faced her in the forests of Champawat. After a tense and dangerous hunt, Corbett brought the beast down with a rifle shot. When her body was examined, they found the cause of her rage. Broken canine teeth, likely from a past injury, made it hard for her to hunt wild prey, so she had turned to the slowest, easiest target: humans. The Champawat tiger's reign was over, but the fear she left behind, the way she haunted the forest and the minds of the people, lived on long after the jungle went quiet. Number 5. The Jersey Shore shark attacks. It was the perfect summer. The sun was warm, the ocean calm. Tourists flocked to the Jersey Shore in search of relief from the heat. No one suspected the water held anything more dangerous than a strong current. Then came the first attack, July 1st, 1916. A young man was pulled under while swimming near Beach Haven. Witnesses saw him struggle, heard his screams, but it was over in seconds. When they pulled him out, his legs were shredded. He died hours later. A freak accident, people said. But 5 days later, another swimmer was killed in Spring Lake, and then the terror moved inland. On July 12th, the boy was attacked while swimming in Madawan Creek, a narrow, brackish waterway miles from the ocean. Locals searched the creek in panic, only for a second boy and a man trying to rescue him to be attacked as well. By the time it ended, 5 people were dead, and America was in shock. No one believed sharks could attack humans, especially not in a creek. Newspapers exploded with headlines. Panic spread. Beaches emptied. Some towns put up steel nets. Others took to the waters with rifles and dynamite. Eventually, a fisherman caught a great white shark, just miles from the attacks. Inside its stomach were human remains. It was declared the killer. The 1916 Jersey Shore attacks changed everything. The public never swam the same way again. What had once been a symbol of summer freedom, the open sea, had become a place of fear. Scientists had to reconsider what they knew about sharks. Until this event, scientists believed sharks didn't attack humans. That illusion shattered. The Madawan attacks inspired Peter Benchley's Jaws, but the real story is worse, because it actually happened. Number 4. The Leopard of Rudraprayag. The villagers had grown used to fear. Night after night, the silence of Rudraprayag in northern India was shattered by screams. Doors were bolted, windows sealed, but it didn't matter. The leopard always found a way. It came silently, slipping through shadows like smoke. Sometimes it clawed its way through a mud wall. Other times it crept through a thatched roof. And always, someone vanished. This was no ordinary predator. For nearly a decade, between 1918 and 1926, the Leopard of Rudraprayag hunted humans. It was believed responsible for over 125 deaths, dragging victims from inside their homes, temples, and even roadside shelters. People were terrified. Pilgrims feared walking the sacred trails to Kedarnath. Entire villages lived in lockdown after sunset. Some said the leopard was a demon. Others believed it had developed a taste for human flesh after scavenging bodies during a plague. Traps were set, armed patrols were formed, but nothing stopped it. Eventually, famed hunter Jim Corbett was called in. He studied the terrain, listened to the villagers' stories, and waited patiently. For months, the leopard outsmarted him, vanishing before every shot. But Corbett refused to give up. Finally, in 1926, he tracked the animal and brought it down with a single bullet. When the villagers saw its body, they wept, both in grief and relief. The nightmare was over. The Leopard of Rudraprayag wasn't just a killer. It was a symbol of how nature, wounded and twisted by disease and desperation, could become something monstrous. And even today, its story lives on in the hills where fear once slept beside every bed. Number 3. The Crocodiles of Ramree Island. Near the end of World War II, 1945, British troops were pushing Japanese forces off Ramree Island, a swampy stretch of land off the coast of Burma. But what happened next wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. Trapped and desperate, nearly 1,000 Japanese soldiers fled into the island's mangrove swamps, hoping to escape. What they didn't know was that they had entered the territory of something far worse than enemy fire. The swamps were alive, with saltwater crocodiles, some over 6 meters long. The soldiers were exhausted, injured, and sinking into mud. Then came the night. According to survivors, the darkness was pierced by screams, followed by thrashing water and snapping jaws. The crocodiles, drawn by blood and movement, attacked relentlessly. Some men drowned. Others were torn apart. British troops stationed on the edge of the swamp reported hearing the chaos from a distance. Shouts, gunfire, then silence. By morning, only a fraction of the Japanese soldiers emerged alive. The rest had vanished into the swamp. While exact numbers are debated, some calling the story exaggerated, it remains one of the deadliest animal-related incidents linked to warfare. The Guinness World Records once dubbed it the worst crocodile disaster in recorded history. The story of Ramree Island is more than a wartime tale. It's a grim reminder that nature doesn't take sides. Number 2. Lions of Njombe. They were walking home from the fields, laughing as the sun dipped behind the hills. Then came a rustle in the brush, a blur of golden fur, screams, dust. When the chaos settled, one of the boys was missing. His sandals were still lying in the dirt. In the Njombe region of southern Tanganyika during the early 1940s, lions weren't just feared, they were relentless. These weren't ordinary predators. They had developed a chilling taste for human flesh. At night, they stalked villages made of grass and sticks. A paw would crash through a wall. A child would be gone by morning. The people had little protection. Spears and rusted knives were no match. Most couldn't afford guns. Even those who could were helpless against the lion's cunning. Some villagers claimed the beasts could count, waiting until a group of hunters left before sneaking in to attack the unguarded. The boy's uncle was one of the few with a rifle. He charged into the forest, driven by fury. But in the dense undergrowth, the sound of chewing met him first. He crept closer. A lion looked up. Blood coated its snout. In its jaws hung the boy's shirt, still wrapped around his arm. The rifleman froze. His shot never came. Over several years, the pride in Njombe was believed to have killed over 1,500 people. British game warden George Rushby was sent to stop them. He realized the lions had abandoned their usual prey. Now they hunted humans, and they did so with chilling precision. When they ate humans, they often devoured everything except the skull, which they would crack open like a nut to eat its nutritious contents. Several times Rushby found a human skull like a bowl licked clean. Eventually, Rushby and his team killed the last of the man-eaters. Only then did the slaughter end. But for the people of Njombe, the memory of those lions, silent, calculating, and hungry, would never fade. Number 1. The Korowai Cannibals. All the stories before this one have been about animals, lions, tigers, sharks, and crocodiles. But the most terrifying man-eaters in history haven't always walked on 4 legs. Sometimes the most dangerous predator is human. Deep in the rainforests of Papua, Indonesia, lived the Korowai tribe, a group once feared for their brutal tradition of ritual cannibalism. For outsiders, it was a nightmare made real. A society where humans didn't just kill, they hunted and ate their own. The Korowai believed that certain people, witches called kakua, secretly used dark magic to kill others from within. These witches could disguise themselves as friends, neighbors, even family. And the only way to stop them? Find the kakua, kill them, and eat their flesh to destroy the evil inside. Accusations often led to horrifying ends. The accused were dragged into the forest, executed, butchered, and cooked over fire. Their bodies were divided and consumed by the tribe in solemn, sacred rituals. It wasn't random violence. It was systematic, accepted cannibalism passed down for generations. And for the Korowai, it wasn't about hunger. It was about justice, about fear, about belief. It's estimated that over 4,000 people were executed and cannibalized under these beliefs in the 20th century alone, though the true number may be higher. Many of the deaths happened in silence, in the deep jungle, where no one outside ever saw or recorded what happened. But for those who remember, the fear was real. People slept in tree houses 30 meters above the ground, not just to escape animals, but to stay out of reach of their own people. Unlike animals driven by instinct, these were people who killed with conviction, who believed they were protecting their world. And that's what makes it so chilling. Because in the end, the most terrifying man-eaters in history aren't lurking in the jungle or swimming beneath the waves. Sometimes they're walking beside us, looking just like anyone else,